I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, it looks like the wife of the Israeli Prime Minister is actually going to be indicted. Israel holds the largest animal rights demonstration in history, and we'll reveal which major American brand is about to open up in the Holy Land. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. After months of speculation and years of rumors, Israel's Attorney General has just confirmed that he will be criminally indicting Sarah Netanyahu for fraud. That means the Prime Minister's wife will be formally accused of using over $100,000 of state money for her own private expenses. A 16-page draft of the indictment alleges that Netanyahu and a former deputy director of the Prime Minister's office fraudulently spent thousands each month on luxury meals. That's up to $7,000 a month for years. The court documents details how the Prime Minister's wife apparently tried to conceal her spending by telling the public their house didn't employ a home chef. Sarah Netanyahu was facing a slew of other allegations as well, including using state funds to buy personal furniture and covering her father's medical expenses. But for now, Attorney General Avichai Mendelblit will only move forward with charges on the fraudulent meal expenses. Sarah Netanyahu has denied any wrongdoing in the matter, but it looks like she'll have to prove her case in court in the near future. With scandals surrounding Prime Minister Netanyahu, his wife Sarah, and now even their son Yair, the Israeli leader is set to make a historic visit to Latin America. And here to tell us more is ILTV's Latin American correspondent, Joy Gavijan. So Joy, why is this trip so important?
Well, as you said, we can call this trip historic because this will be the first time a sitting Israeli Prime Minister visits Latin America, and this shows how much Netanyahu is making efforts to raise ties with the region.
Absolutely. And the destinations that he chose are very strategic, right?
Yeah, that's correct. His first destination will be Argentina. Relationships with this country have improved since Mauricio Macri assumed the presidency. And I have to tell you that they are preparing a very nice welcoming for the Prime Minister. In advance, I can tell you that during his visit in Buenos Aires, Netanyahu will be named illustrious visitor by the Argentinian Congress.
And that's a really big deal in Argentina, right? And he's also going to be visiting Mexico, correct?
Correct. He will be meeting Mexican President Peña Nieto, and this comes right after the Israeli government announced that it's sending aid to the Mexican cities that were affected by an 8.1 magnitude earthquake last Friday that killed more than 60 people so far.
And this comes just a few months after the Prime Minister's controversial comment supporting Trump's wall.
Yeah, that's right. But we hope that this means that both nations are over
this incident.
Yes,
right?
We hope that they're over this and they're ready to reach new agreements. The 10-day tour will bring Netanyahu to Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and the United States, joined by a team of Israeli experts in agriculture, water, communications, and energy. Netanyahu will meet with Latin American leaders to cement new agreements on security, customs, social insurance, and pushing tourism cooperation. The visit to Buenos Aires holds a special significance for Israel, as Netanyahu is scheduled to visit the site of two terror attacks in the 90s that claim Israeli victims. The president of Paraguay will also be coming to Buenos Aires to meet Netanyahu. The leaders will be discussing agreements on Latin America's Holocaust archives. This tour comes at a difficult time for Netanyahu's entire family, with indictments pending on several corruption scandals involving the Prime Minister. His wife Sarah is being charged with fraud, and his son just sparked public outrage over an offensive Facebook post with anti-Semitic undertones. But many are beginning to wonder if these scandals aren't about to take a toll on the Prime Minister's work.
With the situation deteriorating every day in the Gaza Strip, we've been seeing a lot of shifting alliances in the Palestinian world. Well, now it looks like another big change may be underway since the newly elected chief of Hamas has just made his first visit to Cairo. And that's in hopes of mending broken relations with Egypt. A relationship with Egypt would be a major win for Hamas, but it's something that's been elusive for years. Faced with maintaining security on the Egypt-Gaza border, Cairo has maintained a strict blockade on Gaza, and its only crossing point has remained mostly closed. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi shut down ties with Hamas because of their relationship with the Muslim Brotherhood, which Egypt still considers to be a terror organization. But this new diplomatic mission could mean that's all about to change.
وفد حركة حماس برئاسة الأخ سمعين هنية من الداخل والخارج سوف يبحث مع المسؤولين المصريين قضايا مهمة على رأسها سبل تعزيز العلاقات الثنائية مع مصر الشقيقة، وأيضا متابعة التفاهمات المصرية الفلسطينية مع حركة حماس بما يخص قطاع غزة وتخفيف الحصار وتخفيف معاناة أهلنا في القطاع. أيضا سوف يتطرق الوفد إلى قضايا وطنية فلسطينية على رأسها سبل تعزيز المصالحة الوطنية الفلسطينية وإنهاء انقسام وتوحيد الصف الداخلي الفلسطيني.
With conditions crumbling in the Gaza Strip, some see this visit as an indication that Hamas may be running out of options. The meeting in Cairo will also include talks on restoring unity between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority's Fatah Party, a conflict at the heart of Gaza's humanitarian crisis. In another change of heart, Hamas has also just bought millions of barrels of diesel fuel from Egypt after months of refusing to pay at all. Hamas is making this $25 million purchase to alleviate a crippling energy crisis, one that leaves Gaza residents with only a handful of hours of electricity a day. But this is all mounting evidence that Hamas may be cornered and fighting for its life right now. Well, a controversial new proposal called the Plan for Victory is now being pushed forward by Knesset member Bezalel Smotrich from the Habayit Ayodi party. This plan is calling to fund the emigration of Israel's Arab populations so that Israel can ultimately extend Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank. As can be assumed, the plan has caused outrage among many rights groups. And joining us in the studio today to discuss the likelihood of its implementation is Dr. Martin Sherman, the founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. Now, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's begin by just give us a quick outline of what the Plan for Victory is.
Well, I'm not sure of all the details of Smotrich's plan, but what's important is the principle on which it's based, the principle of funded immigration. Now, this is something I've long advocated myself, and I believe that it's the only principle upon which a strategic policy can be based, which can ensure the long-term survival for Israel.
So the idea is to essentially pay Arab Palestinians and also Arab Israelis
not necessarily Arab Israelis, but certainly the Arab population in Judea and Samaria.
Okay.
Now, this is, of course, not a new idea. I don't want to go into a rumble over the copyright, but it's something that I've been advocating for over a decade, and I believe the former deputy speaker of the Knesset, Moshe Feiglin, has also been pushing this idea. And it really is the only non-coercive, or at least non-kinetic idea that can allow Israel to address adequately the two imperatives that it needs. But
coercive is an interesting word, right? Because, I mean, the fundamental issue here is is this realistic? Are Palestinians living in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, and the Gaza Strip willing to leave their homes for money, right?
Well, if you look at public opinion polls in Gaza, at least half of the population are prepared to say in a public poll that they would like to immigrate permanently, and many Gazans have drowned at sea trying to extricate themselves from the rule of Hamas. Polls run by Palestinians. But that's because there's a
humanitarian crisis, right?
Well, it's a humanitarian crisis because it is the dysfunctional Palestinian rule. And I can't understand why anyone would believe that setting up Palestinian sovereignty in these areas will make the situation better for Palestinians. Because basically, the two-state solution is a code word for setting up yet another homophobic, misogynistic, Muslim-majority tyranny, because there's no reason to believe that it wouldn't be.
So here's my question for you. I mean, when we talk about the Israeli government paying money to essentially to these Palestinians living in the West Bank to leave, can they leave to Israel, or is it to any place? How does that work? What is how much money goes in towards doing that?
Well, I'm not sure that Smotrich has actually gone into the financial details of it, but according to my calculations, Israel will probably need, over a period of a decade and a half, something like 1 year of GDP, which is a lot of money. But the alternative is not free either. People have done calculations that since the Oslo agreements, Israel has been forced to pay something like 1 trillion shekels, so which is more or less the same order of magnitude. But the money is not the problem. The problem is establishing political legitimacy for the idea, because whatever number you can think of that would induce the Palestinians to emigrate, it's far less than the Americans spent on their war in terror in Iraq and Afghanistan. They spent well over $1 trillion in a decade. So money is not the problem. If the idea acquired political legitimacy, there would be no problem in paying for it. It would be a fraction of the budget.
Right, well, talking about political legitimacy, I mean, I think we still have to go back to that fundamental issue of whether or not Palestinians would be willing to accept money. I mean, a lot of these people have already been living in abject poverty and still feel very, very strongly tied to their nationalistic aspirations.
You know, when you compare the morality, on the one hand, the two-state solution morality of setting up yet another homophobic, misogynistic, Muslim-majority tyranny, or offering non-belligerent Palestinians a better life elsewhere, what sounds more enlightened? Because if you look at the kind of regime that's been set up in the Palestinian-controlled areas, it offers them very little hope. I mean, they've been trying to implement a Palestinian self-governing entity for a quarter of a decade,
I really wonder, is this even something that's realistic, though? Because you still have to convince these people to do that, and not everybody's going to be willing to do that.
What I'm suggesting is setting up a system of positive incentives for leaving, which is large-scale financial inducements, and negative disincentives for staying, which means
what is an example of it?
We would have to relate to the Palestinians as a collective, in the way they relate to themselves, not as a prospective peace partner, but as an unrelenting enemy. And you will have to declare over a period of time that there will be a phased withdrawal of services, of water, electricity, postal services, fuel, etc., and to contend with the humanitarian crisis that this might precipitate. You offer non-belligerent Palestinians a very generous sum of money so that they will be welcome immigrants in a whole range of countries. And basically I've had very positive response from a number of sources when I've suggested this plan, because what's the alternative? I mean, how long can you carry on with a two-state solution? Quarter of a century we've been trying it.
Yeah, well, but the issue is, again, just that fundamental issue of getting these people to do that, right?
Well, as I say, Palestinian polls show that there's widespread willingness to emigrate, even without tangible benefits being put on the table. I believe that if the tangible benefits were put on the table, there would be a huge acceptance of this of the offer. Why wouldn't they?
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Dr. Martin Sherman. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I think our viewers can turn into Facebook if they'd like to learn more about this plan, the plan for victory.
Thank you.
Thousands and thousands of people have just marched for animal rights in the streets of Tel Aviv in perhaps the largest gathering for animal activism in history. Voicing concerns on animal cruelty in food, entertainment, and research industries all over the world, protesters are hoping the massive display will be a turning point for animal rights everywhere. There hasn't been such a gathering of animal rights activists in over 25 years when nearly 25,000 people marched in Washington, D.C. to bring awareness to animal cruelty. But this demonstration in Israel may have possibly surpassed that turnout by thousands. This was an international event coordinated by top animal rights leaders in Israel, Australia, and the United States, including PETA, the largest animal rights group in the world. PETA's president Ingrid Newkirk even gave an impassioned speech at the event, greeted by thousands of demonstrators who marched under this year's slogan, "It's in our hands." At the top of this year's agenda are demands for harsher punishments for animal abusers, the end of fur sale in Israel, and halting the killing of healthy animals in shelters and pounds. The march began in Tel Aviv's Gan Meir and stretched all the way to City Hall at Rabin Square. Nearly 5% of Israel's population is vegan, with hundreds of thousands more vegetarian, but even meat eaters were there marching for animal rights, chanting for the ethical treatment of man's furry and non-furry friends. All right, well, joining us now in the studio is Shira Hilton, the head of media relations at the organization Anonymous for Animal Rights. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how the general public views animal rights here in Israel today.
Well, you know, Israel has become one of the leaders when it regards to animal rights. People love animals. People care about animals, but not only they love and they care them, they actually understand that the way we live, the choices we make every day, they have an impact on the animals.
Absolutely. Where do you think that comes from, that kind of love for animals here?
Well, I think, you know, it's obviously the Jewish heart. It's also the conditions here. You know, people are used to kosher, so people are used to making moral choices when we eat.
Right.
The cuisine, you know, in the Middle East is very vegetarian to be based in. So we had great conditions to begin with. And then
but there are always things to improve, of course, which is why you're here and why this march happened. Now, what do you think needs to change in Israel when it comes to animal rights right now?
So there are a few things. Well, the laws, there are great laws to protect animals, but they're not being enforced enough. And also some of the very hard practices, like the live exports of cows and sheep into Israel from Australia and Europe, just to be slaughtered here, it's something that the vast majority believes that should be banned. And also the Supreme Court is already having a case on this, and they're really with us at the time.
There are legal moves that are happening right now to kind of fight these issues. So my final question for you, because unfortunately we're running out of time, is what can people do to fight for the cause and really support animal rights?
Well, as we said, it's in our hands. So it's joining us in the demos. It's making compassionate choices when we eat, when we shop. It's just thinking about the animals and working to make the world a better place for them as well as for us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in, and we're really proud of the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
I love animals. I think everybody in our studio loves animals. So good luck.
Thank you.
All right, the Venice Film Festival is one of the most prestigious cinematic events of the year, kicking off the Oscar race and bringing together some of the best new films from around the world. Well, this year's festival was one for the history books for Israel, and joining us with the details is ILTV's Aaron Poor. So Aaron, why was this such a standout year for Israel?
Well, the Venice Film Festival is one of the top in the world, and this year's competition was incredibly stiff. I heard it was an excellent festival, however. You know, some of the best filmmakers, Darren Aronofsky, Guillermo del Toro, a lot of really big names were there.
Absolutely.
But for Israel, Israeli director Samuel Maoz took Silver Lion this year, which was amazing, especially since you take after his success in 2009 with Lebanon.
Right. So I love Lebanon. That's an incredible film for those of you who haven't seen it. But I understand not everyone is excited over this win, right?
That's true. Actually, just a few hours after the award was announced, Culture Minister Miri Regev started denouncing the film, saying that it was, you know, went against the IDF and put Israel in a bad light. And so actually, there's been a few there have been a few big names who are thinking of, you know, disinviting her and discontinuing their relationship with her because of those harsh words. But this new film by director Maoz, Foxtrot, it shows a modern take on the Israeli military. It's based loosely off of some of his own experiences. It's a really excellent film.
Let's check it out.
The competition at this year's Venice Film Festival was one for the history books, with new films from international filmmakers like Alexander Payne, Corrida Hirozaku, and Guillermo del Toro. Many were wondering if Israel's entry Foxtrot would get lost in the shuffle. But concerns quickly evaporated following the film's thunderous premiere, as positive buzz began swirling that this might be director Samuel Maoz's second Golden Lion win at the festival. Maoz's first film, Lebanon, won the Grand Jury Award back in 2009, and his new film Foxtrot is already being hailed as an impressive new Israeli classic. The film follows the journey of two Israeli parents who learn their son has been killed in action as a soldier in the IDF. But after they sit Shiva, they find out that there was a mistake and that their son is alive after all. The journey that follows is a surreal exploration of grief and modern Israeli life, one that is clearly connected with the Venice jury who just named the film the runner-up for the festival's ultimate award. Israeli director Samuel Maoz was there to accept his Silver Lion.
I would like to dedicate this award to Mr. Katriel Shchori, head of the Israel Film Fund, who stand like this lion and protect the freedom of speech and expression and the purity of art.
But the film is also making different kinds of waves back home, where Israeli Culture Minister Miri Regev has denounced the film for its depiction of the IDF. Quote, "It's outrageous that Israeli artists contribute to the incitement of the young generation against the most moral army in the world by spreading lies in the guise of art," she said, shortly after the film took its award. Foxtrot was inspired by the director's personal experiences in the army and is receiving funding from the Israeli government's film fund. In response to Regev's statements, the Israeli Academy of Cinema is now considering disinviting her from the Ophir Awards later this month, where Foxtrot will compete for an Israeli Oscar. Either way, Foxtrot has already landed itself on must-see lists all over the world.
We all know what it's like to want just a little bit more privacy, especially those of us who live and work in spaces with a lot of windows. Well, an Israeli company has developed an incredible new technology that can literally make glass turn opaque with just the touch of a button. Joining us now in the studio is Yair Shviro, the owner of Shviro Holon. Thank you so much for coming in.
Hi, Natasha. How are you?
Good, good. So I see we have a lot of interesting items in front of you. Tell us a little bit about this special technology that your company has developed.
Yeah, my company, I'm second generation in my company. And this technology is very interesting because we just take what the client asks for us. You know, we take some layer of PVC.
Okay.
We put in the middle of the layer some special liquid.
Okay.
And this liquid just change.
So you literally stick this
Like
on here, and I'll show it here.
Yeah.
Why don't you hand that to me so I can show our viewers how cool this is. Now, if I'm holding, I have the button in front of me now. If I hold this in front, you can see me through the clear, transparent glass. And then I hit the button. You can't see me anymore, and I can't see you. So basically, this is something that you stick onto glass so that it turns opaque and nobody can see what's happening
it's
inside.
very easy way to put it and very easy way to use it.
Right. And so you stick it, right? It's not a special glass. It's a technology that you stick to glass and then you press a button.
Yeah, sure.
Wow, that's amazing. So what can this be used for? What types of places?
Now we put it for the hotels.
Okay, hotels.
You know,
that's great.
the room is a little bit small and they want to make it bigger and they put this technology in the glass and they open all the
that
space.
way you can have, floor to ceiling windows and it's a much prettier view, but you can make it obviously opaque if you don't want people to see you changing or something. Interesting. So hotels, probably office spaces.
Yes.
I mean, even in cars, does this work in cars also?
Maybe in the future.
Ah, okay. So there's a future here. So my other question for you is it probably has benefits for the environment also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what the benefits are?
We think it's going and grow all the time, because it's a change all the blinds now.
Yeah.
We put it in all the windows and the people very like it. And they save technology, the same energy all the time.
Right, because you don't have to deal with all the heat of all the light coming through the window, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Amazing. So where can our viewers buy this right now?
Now we market it in Shviro Holon.
Okay.
And in the future, we think to go out to start with America,
Absolutely.
California.
I think you're going to have a lot of people who will want that, especially all the celebrities out there, right? All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Yair Shviro.
Thank you.
All right, with 500 stores across dozens of countries, Israelis can finally rejoice because Urban Outfitters and Anthropologie are finally heading for the Holy Land. The trendy fashion retailers just signed a 10-year deal with Israel's Fox stores, and the country's very first Urban Outfitters is set to open very soon. The beloved Urban Outfitters and Anthropologie brands are trendy, cool, and incredibly popular worldwide. Just about every Israeli hits up an Urban or an Anthropologie store at least once while they're abroad. And trust me, the whole country is jumping for joy now that Israel is bringing them to the Holy Land. Everything from men and women's fashion to jewelry, makeup, shoes, heck, even analog cameras and video games. It's all coming to Fox's new virtual shopping mall, which is being built as we speak. The deal also includes bringing the Free People brand to Israeli retailers, which means soon Israelis will have the latest fashion in bathing suits, accessories, and personal care products right down the street. Now, if we could only get Target over here.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. We're all nicer when we like our outfits. So today's word of the day is begadim, which means clothing in Hebrew. For some, style is a way to express who you are without speaking. After all, people are going to stare, so you might as well make your begadim worth their while. But just remember, to each his own, so whatever begadim you choose to wear, flaunt your stuff. I'm sure somebody out there will appreciate your own unique style. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear with light winds and a low of 74 or 23 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow will also be clear, but a heat wave is heading our way and temperatures are expected to climb. The high will be around 89 or 32 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.51 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.